Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constant Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they're going to share some very exciting and humorous information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your effectiveness and laugh a little bit, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is Dale Irvin. Dale has been speaking for over 30 years, and what he primarily does is he listens to other speakers and creates humor from that. He's based out of the Chicago area, and he's got 8 books. His latest is a bestseller called Dale Irvin Rewrites History. Dale, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
And glad to have you, sir. Now, could you tell us a little bit about your business and what you do?
Certainly. I am the world's only professional summarizer.
Okay.
And that is my brand. I've been doing this for about the summarizer for about 25 years or so. And what I do is I discovered when I first got into the speaking business that there were all kinds of speakers out there. There were motivational, inspirational, educational, humorous, and I never really fit into any of those categories. But what I did fit into was what I've been doing ever since I was a kid, and that is sitting in the back of the room making fun of the teacher. So what I do is I listen to other speakers at big conferences and conventions, and then I write an instant summary in the form of a comedy monologue that I then deliver to the audience. This does a couple of things. First of all, once the audience understands that this is what I'm going to do for their whole convention, it keeps them alert, it keeps them awake, it gets them there on time because they don't want to miss the funny, and the most important thing is that they will remember the serious points when they hear them a second time in a humorous connotation.
You know, I am so intrigued by this, and I would really like to ask you, if it's possible, if you could give us a sample of some revisionist humor that you've created.
Well, I do so much of it that I tend to forget it right after I do it.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you do it? Do you see something, write it down, and then deliver it, or do you see it and then deliver it from actual memory?
Oh, no, I write everything down. I take notes, very deliberate notes while the speaker is speaking, and I actually write the jokes while I'm taking the notes.
I gotcha. Okay, well, I won't put you on the spot then. You're off the hook, man.
Well, I'll give you, when we're done here, I'll give you a summary of this entire show. So
okay.
How about that?
Okay, excellent. Go easy on me, man. So, This is very fascinating. So, what inspired you? And I know you talked about you didn't fit in any of the molds. So it's one of those things where you're one of those unique individuals where you kind of saw your calling at a very early age. What was your first experience? Was this something that you kind of accidentally got into? How did you? When did you deliver your first revisionist material?
Well, like I said, I've been for lack of a better term, a smart aleck my entire life. I was at a convention one time for the National Speakers Association, which is our professional association. And a friend of mine called me up, said, "Are you going to the convention?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Would you do me a favor?" I was supposed to make an announcement about something that's coming up at the next convention, and I'm going to be out of town. I'm not going to be there. Would you make this announcement for me? I said, "Sure." "How long did they give you?" He said, "They gave me 10 minutes to make this announcement." Well, it was a very simple announcement. I knew it wasn't going to take me 10 minutes, so I filled in the other 9 with a recap of what had happened that morning. And somebody had seen that and said, "Could you do that at my convention?" And somebody else saw it, and then a meeting planner, or a speakers bureau rather, saw it and said, "I can book this." And I just started doing it because nobody else was.
Wow.
Which is the secret of the success, as far as I'm concerned, in this business, is do something nobody else is doing.
Absolutely. Talk about creating a unique niche for yourself. That's awesome.
So, I trademarked the professional summarizer. I'm the only person that does it. So, it's been a good ride.
So, how do you go about booking engagements? Do you have this person who specifically books your engagements for you, or do you go out and generate new business yourself?
That's the hard part, because what I do is virtually impossible to explain via a brochure. It's even difficult to explain via a video clip, because if you weren't there, you're probably not going to get the jokes that I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So the majority of my business comes from people who have seen me somewhere else.
Mm.
And that that's the key. It's people who have recommended me or have seen me somewhere else, have heard about what I do. But it's not a cold sale. I can't pick up a phone and say, hey, you guys need a summarizer.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I'm going to say, no, we don't. Goodbye.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's kind of hard to give a demo.
Exactly, because it could be the funniest one in the world, but unless you were there and heard the speaker that I'm referencing, it doesn't really make all that much sense.
Absolutely. Interesting. So, what did you do before you, like, what was your first job? Your first job as a kid? Your first job out of school?
I've had a million of them. My very first job was a paper route, and I did that all through school. Then when I graduated from college, I had a degree in finance, which qualified me to sell life insurance, which I did for 6.5 months before I completely ran out of relatives. So from there, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do and decided to go into the advertising business. I interviewed and got a job at a local advertising agency, and then I moved to Chicago to go with another agency, and I was in the advertising business for quite a while. I'm very proud of the fact that I wrote the slogan, "Good to the last drop." And unfortunately, I wrote it for the Otis Elevator Company, so they didn't really buy it.
Are you serious?
Of course not. This is the part where you laugh. You see, I'm a comedian. I make these little funny jokes.
Yeah,
the last drop. Anyhow, so I was eventually fired from the advertising business, and that's when I decided to be a full-time. At first, I was a full-time comedian. Worked every club in the country. I worked cruise ships for about 5 years. I developed my skills, and then kind of discovered the corporate end of the business, which is where all the money is.
Okay. Now, do you write? And this could be a good additional services provided. Do you write for others, like for if someone else needed content or material?
Absolutely. That's what I've been concentrating on most recently. Is I'm getting tired of traveling, so I've cut my travel schedule down quite a bit. But I do write for other speakers, for corporate execs that want some jokes into their speech, because by nature, most of the CEOs I know, they're not real crazy about speaking. But if they get a little coaching and especially some funny material, it goes over much better.
Mm-hmm. And how do you typically talk to them about maybe known things to talk about? Do you probably
what I do is I take somebody's existing speech, either in written form or in video form or in both, and I view it as though I were going to summarize it in a conference, and then I rework it to fit the jokes that I wrote as well as other jokes into their speech in order to make it funnier. So I actually review what they were going to say. Okay.
So we've got two product services that you offer. You offer you direct speeches and you write content for others. Are there any other services that you provide within your business?
No, I sold my lawnmower, so I don't do that anymore. And that's pretty much it. Writing and coaching and performing. That's pretty much the gamut of my work style.
So let's talk about coaching. How do you coach in humor, or do you coach in writing, or do you coach in writing humor?
I primarily coach in humor because the two essential elements of anything that's funny is, number one, your material, and number two, probably even more important, your timing.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and explain that to people, how to deliver a joke, where to deliver it, how long to wait after it. It's a difficult thing to show folks if they haven't gone through it. That's why I went through it in comedy clubs for years, and that's how I learned how to do it.
Yeah, I look at people like David Letterman and going back, Johnny Carson, how those guys were, their wit, their timing was just and is just impeccable, and how repetition plays a large part in that. It's like if I go out and I try to tell jokes maybe once or twice a year, it's going to be very difficult. But if you're doing it, if you're practicing it day in and day out, it seems like it would be a lot more seamless.
Well, it gets to the point where it's pretty much the way you look at life. I mean, when I read the newspaper, I'm reading it partly for the news stories. I'm reading it more for the punchlines, because that's just the way I look at life. You mentioned Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson had the best timing of anybody since Jack Benny, whom he credited with having watched to develop his timing. But yeah, I used to watch Carson all the time, and he could get more laughs out of a joke that bombed than he could out of one that went over. And that's all timing.
Absolutely. I didn't just read his book. Probably about a year ago, I read his book.
Which one?
What was the name of that book?
The one by his agent, by the bombastic Bushkin?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good book. I've read a couple. The King of the Night is also a good book about Carson, but the one by Bushkin gave you an insight that wasn't present in other books.
Yeah. It was, I got it on my Kindle, and it was one of those where I couldn't put it down. I'm like, okay, I really like Johnny. I'll see how this goes. And I think I was done with it in like 2-3 days.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was so yeah, absolutely. Yeah, timing, and so those are some of the. So how do you teach them to develop the timing? Do you go through different role playing, through different skits?
There are things that I suggest that they watch, that they read. We go back and forth. I do a lot of things on Skype so that they can actually see how I would recommend that they time out a thing. So it's really I don't know if there's a real pattern to how I go through this. It's more of a hands-on approach. Each person is individual. Each person has a different style of delivery. Each person is comfortable with a different type of humor. So you have to work within their comfort levels, within what they want to do, and try and lead them to become funnier themselves.
So if people would like to learn more about your services that you provide, either through coaching or direct performances or content writing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way would just to be to contact me through my website, which is Dale Irvin. That's DaleIrvin.com. Now, on the first page of my website, you will see a button that says Friday Funnies. Now, this is something that you can subscribe to absolutely free. Every Friday, what I do is I do a recap, a summary, if you will, of the odder stories in the week's news, and then I put that out both in a written form and as a link to a video I do every week on YouTube, which shows people a style of delivery, a style of timing, and it's all current events that have happened in the news. So you can sign up for that for free. You can read my blog for free, and you can even visit my little store, the little Shop of Humor, where you can pick up some of my books. Those aren't free.
Okay, excellent. So now I am ready. The audience is ready for you to revise this interview.
Okay, basically what we had was your standard interview where you asked questions and I made up answers, and then you would occasionally ask a question to which the answer was funny and you just didn't get it. So I would suggest you Google Otis Elevator Company to see what they do. and perhaps you'll get the good to the last drop, because that's a funny joke. Works most of the time, except of course when I'm doing interviews.
Awesome. And the ironic part is I used to work for the company United Technologies that owns Otis Elevators. So Da-da-da.
There you go. It all comes around in nature.
Absolutely. Well, man, it was a privilege and a pleasure having you on the show. That was very exciting and entertaining information that you provided to us, and we appreciate it.
My pleasure. DaleIrvin.com. Hope to see everybody there.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.